very much, Lynn. So our first session this morning is that we're going to hear from a number of endocrinology specialists and Partha as well, who has an NHS England higher level role. So without any further ado, I'm going to welcome Partha to the stage to talk about what he's going to talk about.
Thank you very much. So in classical my style, I thought I was going to talk for 2 minutes, then I walked in and said, you know, you've got 20 minutes. So we're going to go for a halfway house to make up for lost time. So first of all, I was probably welcome everybody. I'll tell you a little bit about myself. My name is Partha, I'm a consultant in diabetes. I work in a place called Portsmouth, which is very far from here. It's mostly sunny. It's got a sea next to it. And apart from that, I do 2 national roles. One is as one of the national directors of diabetes with NHS England, and the other is a particular job which takes you around all the hospitals around the country. So people always say, why do you do that? We try and find out quality of type 1 diabetes surveys, what it's safe, etc. Now, so I'll start with welcoming everybody to coming to this, and before going on any further, also to say a big thank you to Lynn for organising all this, and I'm sure you'll find chance to work. So I suspect the first question is, why are we here and what sort of brought this whole concept together? So if I take a step back, to me, or at least in my training, from my experience, type 1 diabetes is about 2 things. If you get those 2 things right, everything else takes care of itself, which is self-management and peer support. What you do as healthcare professionals is probably just being a guide on the journey. That's all. Whether it's mental health support, whether it's technology, everything is about giving people better tools to look after themselves better. Whether you have got type 1 yourself, you're a carer, that's the whole point of it. And I always label the point that with the best will in the world, as a healthcare professional, I will see somebody 2, 3, 4 times a year. That's about 0.02% of your life. That's it. It's about 2 hours of 8,740 or however hours there are in a year. I'm not going to make any dramatic changes in your life in those 0.02%. Nobody can. If any healthcare professional believes they can, then that God complex is on a totally different planet. It's not going to happen. You live with it the rest of it. And I think our job is to try and help you, give you tools. That's it. Nothing else. When you come along to any of our clinics, all we can say is that from my experience, and from what I've read in the books, that looks like a good idea. Or not. Up to you then to take it away. So if you look at the whole concept of why we're here, right, the debate about technology, what people are doing, that's the fundamental, self-management. And peer support. You're all here to look after each other, talk to each other. Who is the best guy to help you with your diabetes? The person who lives with type 1 diabetes. I'm not. I can just give you some books, research and evidence. That's the best. In my case, probably not even that. So, also, if you take a step back, why are we here? Why is it to the point that we have a situation which in some people's eyes are controversial, in some people's eyes are progressive, some people believe they're rebels, some people renegades, some people they are the path blaters. Why is that? That's because if you look at all the evidence around the country, and I can talk about England, type 1 diabetes care is not brilliant. Not many people get to where they should get. And that's in spite of everything we do. So if you believe for a second it's just about the money, it's not. I can guarantee you it's not. Because there is a lot of money invested, for example, in pediatric care. The outcomes of what, let's say, if you take for a moment HbA1c, people getting to less than 7.5% is a dead heat between adults and pediatrics. National data. There's no difference. So what is it that we're not doing right? And I think why are we at this situation? That's because we haven't been able to give what people need all the time. And human beings as such, you will find a way. And that's where this whole we are not waiting, the open APS culture comes from. People will find a way to look after themselves better if the system is not doing it. And that's where we are. So as somebody who is a diabetologist, as somebody who does national policy role, our job is not to block it. People are using it. Our job is to try and facilitate it. Our job is to make sure that it's safe. Our job is to make sure that you can live your lives and we can be a support. People have asked me, so I've got people who are on the looping and they come around and so people say, what is the role of you as a doctor then? Doesn't have to be anything. I've got plenty of people out there. There's plenty of people who need support. Not everybody needs to be seen by a doctor and given advice by everybody. So that's one of the things. And if you look at the situation where we are at, so if you look at Scotland, have been much more fortunate as to where things are as far as freestyle libre, etc. goes. But if you look at the story of where that comes, it's not the patients or the people living with diabetes who have been the biggest barrier. It's been the system. It's been the specialists. It's been people who have appointed themselves as vanguards when we haven't asked them to be vanguards. So when we can't give people what they need, then I don't think we can stop in the way of people trying to find what they need either. So we can't have it both ways. So the history of this, I think about 2 years ago, we said, why don't we try and get everybody together in one place? And I must say, we'll hear from Dana later on today. I heard about Dana as ever on social media, and we had a chat. And I said to Dana, do you fancy coming on and telling us, what is this you're doing? I can't understand what this. Are you getting pumps and technology talk to each other? What is that? So Dana came along kindly, and we had a lot of people around, and we had Tim, the initial one, Alistair came in later on, and we just organised an event where we had a lot of people. What was interesting to see the amount of interest that people had. And I think that's where this is. So it's a delight to see it here. People, so when Lynn approached me, can you do it? The answer is it's not copyrighted. I don't get paid for this. It's just a fancy name. You can do it in Scotland, you can do it in Wales, you can do it anywhere, you can do it in Timbuktu. It's the concept of getting people together and talking about what can be the future. That's it. It's simple. It's not too tricky. Now you might come out of here today looking at something saying, well, this is probably not for me. Maybe so. Or you can come out and say, this is something I want to do. Our job, as I said, in a regulatory place, is not to say no. It's to say, what can we do to help you better? It's not to say, I can't provide you with the basics, and also at the same time say, I'm not going to give you what you're trying to do. So with all that in play, I think there is a paradigm shift as to how we're doing type 1 diabetes care. People are realizing better what self-management is and will always be the key. And that's what the system is shifting. Social media for me has been a great level. You don't have people on the hierarchy. The system takes time to change. But change is inevitable as you go along. You cannot stop change, and people who are doing the work they're doing, whether it's Dana, whether it's Tim, whether it's Alistair, all of the people, take your hats off for trying to do that. You do not change paradigms by just doing what normally works or doesn't work. It's good. It's good to encourage that. And I'll finish with one last thing. So if you talk to a healthcare professional who's motivated, you talk to Sandeep in the audience, Emma and stuff, what is our dream, apart from having rest from time to time, is we would like to have type 1 diabetes care better, right? We would like to, it's passion. We just want to do something. But I always say is that, dreams, it's very difficult when you see data coming in and we're still not getting there. So, you can't quite get, but I have a phrase which I use quite a lot, dreams don't die when you falter. Dreams die when you give up. So I think this is a perfect example of people trying. And our job as healthcare, I don't have type 1 diabetes. I don't know what it is to have a high. I don't know what it is to prick my fingers. I don't know anything about type 1 diabetes. And that is important for me to thereby just guide, help, and support. And one of the reasons I did this, and I continue to do those things, even though it's a national road, is also to say the system is always a material system of bad people. The system is here to try and support. The system is not there out there trying to find ways to stop this from happening. So I leave it at that. Thank you very much for everybody coming along, and hopefully we can catch up at some stage during the day. Thank you.
For those people who have got a quick show of hands to see who's managed to log in. Okay, so if you're sitting next to somebody who's got access and you don't have it, if you don't mind sharing your phones or devices, then we'd all really appreciate that. And at this point, I'm now going to hand you over to Debbie Wake, the clinical lead for My Diabetes My Way, who's going to talk to you about what she does.
Thanks very much. Can everybody hear me okay, first of all? Yeah? Okay, I'll try to speak into the mic. Many thanks. My name's Debbie Wake. I'm a diabetes consultant here at Lothian, so I do some diabetes clinics mainly at Western General and Leith Hospital, and do academic work with the University of Edinburgh as a clinical reader out at Little France. And I'm clinical lead for My Diabetes My Way. And just a show of hands, how many people have heard of My Diabetes My Way? Good, great. So I'm speaking to the enlightened for a few of you who don't know about it. I'm going to go through a few things today. Just talk a little bit about My Diabetes My Way and IT systems generally in Scotland, and then talk a little bit about the wider context of digital and how we use digital to support patient self-management and patient education. Are the slides forwarding on okay? We should be on the second slide now for people here. Yep, fantastic. So I just want to start with a little bit of background to say that actually we're very lucky living in Scotland from a point of view of diabetes care and the IT behind it. We might not always feel that, but actually we're one of the only countries in the world that have a joined up IT system that the healthcare professionals can use across the whole country to manage people with diabetes. And that's a platform called Sky Diabetes that some of you may have heard of. And it means that no matter where you live in Scotland, from the time you're diagnosed, your data will go onto this platform, and it means that healthcare professionals across the country can use the information that's gathered either in the GP practices, in the laboratory systems, when you go to get your eyes screened, feet screened, all that data comes together in one place, and it's a really useful system for management. And we've also got My Diabetes My Way, which, as many of you know, is our self-management platform for people with diabetes. So the next slide just shows that data integration for Scotland. I say this is pretty unique around the world. There's a few other countries, Sweden being one that has a national registry for diabetes, but it doesn't have the IT platforms to support that in the same way as we do. And beyond that, really, we're pretty unique. And this helps us not just in everyday clinical management, but it also helps a lot of research. So there's a massive amount of internationally renowned research that comes from the data from this platform that helps progress diabetes care. We produce a report every year that goes to the Scottish Government on how we're, as a nation, performing around diabetes care. And we also use the data for supporting patient management through My Diabetes My Way. So by way of background, the work with Sky Diabetes was really developed in Dundee through a team at NHS Tayside and the University of Dundee. And Scott Cunningham, who's over on the stand there, was one of the sort of technical leads who's been working on this for about 20 years to join the data up in Scotland. And My Diabetes My Way has been in existence for about 10 years. And this, again, is all funded by the Scottish Government. My Diabetes My Way is run by the University of Dundee on behalf of NHS Scotland and provided to everyone in Scotland with diabetes for free. And the real benefits of using having these platforms is that we can improve care. So at the clinician level, basically if you don't know what's happening in terms of your diabetes care, then you can't really change it. And over the time that Sky Diabetes and My Diabetes My Way were implemented, we've seen a massive improvement in care for diabetes across Scotland. And that's when we look at, how often people are getting their feet screened, how often we're screening urine tests to look for early stages of diabetic kidney disease, making sure everyone's getting an HbA1c and a blood pressure done at least once a year. And we've seen massive improvements in all these parameters over the last 15 years or so. And that's in no small part due to the IT systems, which allow us to actually measure these things, track them, and then work towards improving them. And what we've seen over the same period is things like end-stage complications, so amputation rates have halved, the need for people to get laser therapy for eye disease has dropped to a third of previous levels, and despite the fact we've seen a big rise in diabetes, which I appreciate is mainly due to type 2 diabetes, actually all the risk factors for heart disease have all come down significantly. So I think that's a really good place to be. And when we're thinking about diabetes and we're focusing on how IT and digital can help us manage diabetes, I will sort of think about it in two ways. The main costs for treating diabetes from an NHS point of view is in the treatment of complications. So about 80% of the cost spent is treating people generally coming into hospital with severe hypos, with heart problems, with foot problems, with downstream complications. That's 80% of the cost, so it's about £1.5 million per hour that the NHS UK is spending on that. So really we need to be focusing on, can we prevent these, can we intervene early by supporting self-management and supporting patients, and also focusing on the healthcare professionals delivering the best care that they can through evidence-based guidelines. And so that's really the key focus of where we try to move things on from a digital point of view. And the other thing is that diabetes rates, of course, are rising massively. And of course, that's mainly type 2 diabetes, but actually we are seeing a rise in type 1 as well. So we can no longer deliver all our care as we used to, in sort of one-to-one traditional mode of spending time in the clinic. We need to be more creative about how we create networks, digital, online innovations to actually support delivery of care at scale. And that's what, again, we're trying to do through IT. So just for those of you who aren't familiar with My Diabetes My Way, I'm going to just spend a couple of minutes taking you through some of the features of the platform, tell you about what's coming next, and then just talk a little bit more generally about digital innovation in diabetes. So what My Diabetes My Way tries to be is a one-stop shop for people with diabetes. We integrate data from the NHS record, so as you've heard, anytime a blood test is done, or you get your weight or blood pressure measured at a clinic, or a food screening, eye screening is done, all that data comes into My Diabetes My Way, and we make it accessible for patients to be able to see that. We also are now pulling in data from things like whole blood glucose recordings, and we're working with Diasend and others to look at how we integrate that data in, and starting to get integrations with things like Fitbits and other activity monitors. So the more data we've got coming into the platform, the more we can then use that data to give very automated, personalised support. We've got educational resources, e-learning courses, tools to communicate with your healthcare professional, access to the electronic health record, automated advice and care reports. So I'll just show you very quickly a few screenshots. The educational resources on the platform are quite wide-ranging: videos, leaflets, interactive elements. You can filter by type of diabetes, language, topic. We've got quite a lot now content in other languages, and that was partly through collaboration with North West London. So we've now got, as of the last few months, a lot more, let's say, multi-language content. What's quite new on the platform are these structured education courses. So this is 6 courses that you can work through in a very structured way for various things. So one is for newly diagnosed people with type 1 diabetes. One is for people thinking about going onto an insulin pump. One is for people actually starting the process of going onto an insulin pump. One is for young people with type 1 diabetes, so the kind of teenage young adults, and that was developed along with Jackie Charlton and some of the team here in NHS Lothian. And then we've also got a module for type 2 diabetes and gestational diabetes. And what these courses do is they try to be more structured in their learning. They'll take you through a curriculum. You can meet other people on the courses, so there's kind of discussion boards and threads, so it keeps it really interactive. There's quizzes along the way, engaging content, videos, things to comment back on, and you get a certificate at the end of it. And we know that structured education delivered in this way has been shown to really improve sort of long-term outcomes for self-management for diabetes. And these have all been through a formal accreditation process called Kismet. So those, we're going to be doing a big sort of PR about this over the next couple of months to make sure that the word gets out of Scotland that these are there, and I say they're fully accessible for people to use. One of the keys for My Diabetes My Way, however, is pulling in the data. And we pull in the data, as I've mentioned, from multiple sources. So it means that people with diabetes can go in and access that data. We try and display it in quite a sort of friendly way. We colour code it. We use things like these target charts. So the closer you are to the bullseye on some of the target charts, the better you're doing for certain diabetes parameters like HbA1c and weight and blood pressure. We try to give automated feedback on the data trends. So we'll look at how the data is changing, and there'll be algorithms and rules running in the background of the platform that will interpret that change in data and give you automated feedback on where you are against the targets, and we'll give tips and hints as to how to improve things if needed, and we'll link you back to educational resources if that's helpful. You can add and own recordings yourself, so either automatic upload through Diasend and pull it through, or you can type in data like blood pressure data, weights, blood glucose data, anything that's being measured upload to come into the platform. You can set goals around the diabetes care, you can view your appointments, you can view the letters that have been sent from secondary care to primary care. This is only active in some regions where your clinicians have consented to sharing that data. And look at the full medication record and find out a bit more about the medication. So if you're not sure why you might be on certain tablets, or you want to find out more about side effects and things, it links through to lots of information about that. We link to things like the Diabetes UK Care Essentials, so there are certain processes that everyone with diabetes should have done over the course of a year, and you can look at any time, real time, at your report as to where your diabetes care is against those parameters, and easily see areas that need to be checked or things that are overdue, like eye screening, food screening results. And we also link to a lot of Diabetes UK content generally. So whilst we make our own content, actually, there's really good stuff out there, and we will generally we'll link to really good accredited material that's being produced. And this just shows a few screenshots showing some explanations for things like body mass index and the T1 links. So again, we will build a data profile for an individual, you know, depending on their type of diabetes, how long they've had it, what their goal setting, what medication they're on, and we will try to use that data as it comes into the platform to give very tailored advice and tailored links back to very specific educational material that is relevant for you at that time in your diabetes journey. The system will also do things like automatically calculate risk of things like food screening results being interpreted, and will work out your risk of things like amputation, ulcer, and things in the future. Dependent on your risk, if there's any nerve damage, for example, to your feet, it will give you very specific advice that is again tailored to you, dependent on your food risk scoring. So it's all about this automation and personalisation of care. So that's just a very quick flick through My Diabetes My Way. There is also secure messaging between clinicians and healthcare professionals live in some area, and that's dependent on the clinical teams being comfortable with having the resource to be able to man a secure messaging system that allows people with diabetes to send in messages and for those to be answered online. And as I've mentioned, most of the other functionality. There is now a smartphone app as well as a web browser. The smartphone app's been available for last year, and that's been going down really well. And coming soon, we're completely redesigning the platform for about the 4th time in the last 2 years. We've had a lot of design input into how we can improve it. And I've just shown you here some screenshots to give you a little sneak preview of what's coming. But we're trying to make the platform as user-friendly, really nice design focused, and I think this is going to be a huge improvement on the current web browser platform, and we'll hopefully, we've had a lot of patient input into this, which will hopefully improve things. So that will be coming very soon. Just to resume, we've got over 50,000 registrants now using the platform, which is good, or registered to use the platform, and we're now able to show some good improvements in people who use My Diabetes My Way in terms of care. So we're seeing reductions in things like HbA1c and all the sort of key markers for diabetes. And this is work that Scott's done around the health economics. Don't expect you should read these slides, but basically it was just to let you know we've now submitted some health economic research to the International Diabetes Federation. And what it shows, this was focusing initially on people with type 2 diabetes, that if you look at people using My Diabetes My Way and you match them with a population who are exactly the same, but they're not using My Diabetes My Way, then you can show a huge benefit to the people using the platform, and we can translate that into cost savings for the system, for the NHS. So if you spend £1 on My Diabetes My Way, which only costs a few pence per patient per year to run in Scotland, then we can save the NHS £4 or £5 quite quickly in downstream complications. So there's a little bit of information there. If anyone's interested in the kind of research, I'd say come and speak to us about that. And our future, what we see as the future is really being around, and this comes on to what we're going to be talking more about later in the conference, is around this idea of how we use data, and we use machine learning, algorithms, artificial intelligence, automated support to drive that. So we've been given quite a significant amount of funding from the UK government through something called Innovate UK. And what they want us to do is to use artificial intelligence to look at the data we collect from people with diabetes, remote monitoring data, the data we get from the healthcare computer systems, and start to really understand that data better so that we can push back very detailed automated messaging to clinicians and to patients. And we're starting to do that already. This is just showing the sorts of data that we can collect. It might be questionnaire data, it might be Fitbit data, it might be glucose data, it might be data on diagnosis or medication, it might come in from smartphone apps or social data. But looking at all that data together, we can make sense of that. I'll just look to the next slide, to turn it into what we call sort of meaningful notifications, alerts, and dashboards. So this is just an example of some of the ones that we're working on now. We can start to predict at a very early stage who are the people who are going to run into problems maybe in the next 1, 2, 10, 5 years in terms of things like heart disease or going into hospital. We know that genetics is really important in this, but there's lots of other factors. If we can predict the future, we can intervene early and stop those things happening. We're also able to look a bit more about treatment. We're all very different in terms of the drugs that we respond to, and that might not just be insulin type drugs, but sort of other drugs for blood pressure, heart protection, these sorts of things. And we can start to predict actually which people will respond to which drugs, then we can start to tailor our treatment approaches much better, so people won't get side effects from medication, and they'll only be started on drugs that are going to be efficacious. And we can also start to predict around diagnosis, because what we're finding now in a lot of work being done in Edinburgh is that there are cohorts of people who've been diagnosed with type 1 or type 2 diabetes who actually have been misdiagnosed at the start, and they may have an unusual form of genetic diabetes, or people with type 1 who actually have type 2 and vice versa. So again, we can start to use data to really tease out, where perhaps misdiagnoses have been made. So these are the sorts of things that we can use machine learning and AI to do. And this just shows an example of that with glucose data coming into a platform, feeding into a notification to a smartphone to say, we've noticed your blood sugar level patterns have been doing this over the last couple of weeks. This is what we recommend you do around insulin treatment. What we're not doing is the sort of sophisticated stuff in terms of closed loops and pumps. You'll hear more about that later. This is just much more about people who are doing insulin pen injections and doing standard sort of monitoring or some of the more fast-track continuous monitoring. And we know that this sort of thing works because even pushing like a simple pop-up into the clinician-facing platform that says, remember to screen this person's eyes today because it's not been done over the last year, or remember, think about starting this person on drug X. Actually, we saw between a 3 and 10-fold improvement in how the clinicians were performing around adhering to evidence-based guidelines. So very simple pop-ups, alerts, notifications within clinician systems and patient systems can actually make a massive difference to care. So just to conclude, that's some of the work that we're doing in Scotland around how we use digital IT to try to improve and deliver care at scale. There's lots of other ways that we can do this, and I think we in general can use media better. I've got some experience doing podcasts, being a columnist for the Scotsman newspaper, doing TV work, and all of this gets wide reach. And I think we need to be thinking more about how we use media, IT, and data more generally. 85% of the UK population have smartphones. It may even be higher by now. So we need to be using that technology. This is just a list of some of the websites that are out there to support people with diabetes. There's a huge amount of online content to support. We've run courses online, which are remote courses for 2 weeks, and had about 10,000 people from around the world coming and doing these courses over a 2-week period. A really scalable way of delivering education quickly. And there are many other systems. You may have heard of some of these things like My Sugar, or MADA, Livongo, Our Path, Changing Health, Aviva, where again there's online material and apps, but it's also supported in some cases by a digital coach, either at the end of a phone or at the end of an app. So lots of things coming out to help support people with diabetes. Partha talked a lot about the peer support element, which is really important. Online communities, there are many to support people with diabetes. I'm sure many of you know more about these than I do. And I've just mentioned social media generally. It's interesting when you look at the research on social media, because it's a little bit like Marmite. I think people either love it or they hate it. But for people who do use social media to manage diabetes, the research shows that it's seen as a hugely beneficial and usually hugely supportive thing. But there is also, I appreciate, a community of people who it's maybe not the medium they want to use. So that's really all I was going to say today. You'll be hearing a lot more about automated insulin dose titration as we move forward, mainly in the context of closed-loop systems. Just to say there are also other systems that have been inbuilt into blood sugar meters, apps and websites that are kind of standalone insulin management tools, generally not so much supporting people on insulin pumps, but supporting people who are doing insulin injections. But I think in the future, there's a lot that we do in clinic. 80%, I'd say, of the decisions that clinicians make could probably be better made by a computer. And which you might think is a controversial statement, but there's actually a lot of evidence suggesting that. And I think we should be using computers computers and IT as much as we can to do that bit that happens well. And actually let us as clinicians focus on that human element when we're interacting with people to try to say, well, how can we support people better? How can we help with that motivation? What can we do around that support? And actually leave the complex algorithmic decision making to computers is my take on the future. So hopefully that was useful. This is just a screenshot of there's been many people across Scotland and beyond Scotland who've been supporting this kind of work. Some of their faces are shown here. I'm having to dash off, unfortunately, at the coffee break, but just to say Scott Cunningham and Brian Allardyce are over there in the My Diabetes My Way Sky Diabetes stand. Please go over and say hello to them. And also, if you're not registered for My Diabetes My Way, go to the website. You can self-register, or you can get your clinician next time you're in clinic to register on your behalf. Thanks for your time.